Imagine finding a secret map to unshakable joy and peace, hidden in plain sight. What if I told you there's a passage that can transform your spirit, right now? Picture this, a life free of anxiety, filled with divine refuge. Can you feel the weight lifting already? Today, we're diving into a timeless treasure that's been a source of strength for countless souls. Stay with me, because what we uncover could change how you see your life forever. Curious yet? Let's unlock this together. The authorship of Psalm 16 is attributed to King David, a figure of immense historical and religious significance. David, known for his profound relationship with God and his multifaceted life as a shepherd, warrior, and king, provides a rich context for understanding the depth and nuances of this psalm. The attribution to David suggests that these words come from a place of personal experience and intimate connection with God. This personal touch adds a layer of authenticity and relatability, encouraging readers to explore their own relationship with the divine. David's authorship also situates the psalm within a specific historical period, giving it a backdrop of the ancient kingdom of Israel. This context allows readers to appreciate the psalm not just as a piece of spiritual literature but as a historical document reflecting the beliefs, struggles, and aspirations of a people deeply intertwined with their faith. Understanding David's life, including his triumphs and tribulations, helps to illuminate the emotional and spiritual undertones of the psalm, making it a timeless piece that continues to resonate through the ages. Moreover, recognizing David as the author invites readers to consider the psalm as part of a larger canon of his works, including other psalms and biblical texts. This interconnectedness enriches the interpretation, offering a more comprehensive view of David's theological perspectives. It also underscores the continuity of themes such as trust in God, the pursuit of righteousness, and the search for divine guidance, which are prevalent throughout his writings. Before we dive into today's content, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you enjoy our videos and want to see more exciting content, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It's the best way to support us and stay updated on all the new meditations and videos we share. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for being part of our community, and now, enjoy the video. The central theme of Psalm 16 revolves around trust and refuge in God, a concept that is both comforting and empowering. This theme is evident from the very beginning, where the psalmist expresses unwavering confidence in God's protection and provision. The idea of God as a refuge suggests a place of safety and security, where one can find solace amidst life's uncertainties and challenges. This imagery is powerful and universal, resonating with anyone who has ever sought comfort in times of trouble. Trust in God, as depicted in this psalm, goes beyond mere belief. It is a profound, all-encompassing reliance on the divine. The psalmist's faith is not passive but active, characterized by a deep sense of assurance and peace. This trust is portrayed as a dynamic relationship, where the believer continually turns to God, not just in moments of crisis but as a constant source of strength and guidance. It's about finding stability in the divine, knowing that, regardless of external circumstances, God's presence is a steadfast anchor. Furthermore, the theme of trust and refuge in God speaks to the human condition, addressing our innate need for security and belonging. It highlights the contrast between the transient nature of worldly assurances and the enduring faithfulness of God. This theme encourages readers to shift their focus from temporal solutions to eternal truths, fostering a deeper, more resilient faith. By emphasizing God's role as a refuge, the psalm invites believers to experience a profound sense of peace and confidence, rooted in the divine. The psalm opens with a heartfelt invocation, a plea for divine protection. This initial cry to God sets the tone for the entire psalm, underscoring the psalmist's total dependence on the divine. The act of calling upon God for protection reflects a profound recognition of human vulnerability and the need for a higher power. It's a moment of humility and trust, where the believer acknowledges their limitations and seeks the infinite strength and care of God. This invocation is not just a request but a declaration of faith. By asking for God's protection, the psalmist is affirming their belief in God's ability and willingness to safeguard them. It's an expression of confidence in the divine character, God's goodness, mercy, and omnipotence. This plea also serves as a reminder of the covenant relationship between God and the believer, a bond based on trust, love, and mutual commitment. Moreover, the initial invocation highlights the personal nature of the psalmist's relationship with God. It reveals an intimate, direct communication with the divine, free from intermediaries. This direct appeal suggests a closeness and familiarity with God, portraying him not as a distant deity but as a present and attentive protector. This personal approach encourages readers to cultivate their own direct and intimate relationship with God, fostering a deeper sense of connection and reliance on the divine. The psalmist makes a profound declaration of loyalty, affirming that the Lord is their only source of good. This statement is a clear rejection of other gods and a reaffirmation of exclusive devotion to the Lord. It underscores the psalmist's commitment to the monotheistic belief that only the God of Israel is worthy of worship and trust. This declaration is significant as it highlights a conscious choice to align oneself with God, rejecting all other allegiances. This profession of loyalty is not just a theological stance but a personal conviction. By declaring that all good comes from the Lord, the psalmist is acknowledging God's sovereignty and providence in their life. It's a recognition that every blessing, every moment of joy, and every provision is a direct result of God's grace and favor. This perspective fosters a sense of gratitude and humility, reinforcing the believer's dependence on the divine for all aspects of their existence. Furthermore, the rejection of other gods emphasizes the psalmist's understanding of the futility and dangers associated with idolatry. It's a clear stance against the worship of false deities, which often leads to moral and spiritual corruption. This declaration of loyalty serves as a reminder to the faithful to stay true to their commitment to God, recognizing that true fulfillment in goodness can only be found in Him. By making this bold statement, the psalmist sets an example of. The psalmist expresses a deep appreciation for the community of believers, referring to them as the saints in the land. This recognition highlights the importance of fellowship and communal worship in the life of faith. The community of believers is portrayed as a source of joy and strength, a collective embodiment of God's presence and work in the world. This communal aspect of faith underscores the idea that spirituality is not just an individual journey but a shared experience. Valuing the community of believers also reflects an understanding of the interconnectedness of the faithful. The psalmist acknowledges that their own spiritual well-being is intertwined with that of the broader community. This perspective fosters a sense of solidarity and mutual support, encouraging believers to uplift and encourage one another. It's a reminder that faith is nurtured and strengthened through relationships and shared experiences, highlighting the role of the community in sustaining and enriching one's spiritual life. Moreover, this appreciation for the community of believers underscores the importance of unity and harmony within the body of faith. The psalmist's positive view of the community serves as a call to cultivate loving and supportive relationships among the faithful. It encourages a spirit of cooperation and collective worship, recognizing that the community is a vital part of God's plan for His people. By celebrating the community of believers, the psalmist emphasizes the value of fellowship and the joy that comes from being part of a faithful, supportive community. The psalmist unequivocally rejects idolatry, condemning the worship of other gods and highlighting the suffering associated with such practices. This rejection is a firm stance against the spiritual and moral dangers of idolatry, which often leads to corruption and estrangement from the true God. The psalmist's condemnation serves as a warning to the faithful, urging them to stay true to their devotion to the Lord and avoid the pitfalls of idol worship. Idolatry, in the context of this psalm, is not just about the worship of physical idols but can also be seen as a metaphor for any form of misplaced trust or allegiance. By rejecting idolatry, the psalmist is advocating for exclusive devotion to God, recognizing that placing trust in anything or anyone else ultimately leads to disappointment and suffering. This stance reinforces the importance of maintaining a pure and undivided faith, free from the distractions and deceptions of false beliefs. Furthermore, the rejection of idolatry highlights the psalmist's understanding of the holiness and exclusivity of God. It's a recognition that God alone is worthy of worship and that any deviation from this truth is not only futile but harmful. This perspective encourages believers to examine their own lives and ensure that their devotion remains solely focused on God. By condemning idolatry, the psalmist sets a clear standard for faithfulness and integrity, guiding the faithful towards a deeper, more authentic relationship with God. So, the authorship of Psalm 16 is traditionally attributed to King David. Now, David is one of those larger-than-life figures who had quite the roller coaster life: shepherd, giant slayer, king, and yes, a man with his fair share of flaws and challenges. Knowing that David wrote this psalm gives us a bit of a backstage pass into his mind and heart. It's like reading a heartfelt letter from someone who has seen it all and still holds on to an unshakable faith. David's life was anything but smooth sailing. He faced everything from the jealousy of King Saul to personal moral failures and family rebellions. Yet, he penned this psalm, which speaks volumes about trust and refuge in God. When you read Psalm 16 with David's life in mind, it adds a layer of authenticity. You can almost picture him, perhaps in a moment of reflection, pouring out his heart and reaffirming his trust in God despite everything he's been through. Alright, moving on to the central theme: trust and refuge in God. This is the heartbeat of Psalm 16. Imagine David, in the midst of all his life's drama, finding solace and strength in his relationship with God. It's like having a best friend who's got your back, no matter what. The idea of God as a refuge is so comforting. It's like saying, hey, no matter what storms are raging outside, I've got this safe place where I'm protected and cared for. Trust here isn't just a passive thing. It's not about sitting back and waiting for things to magically get better. It's an active, dynamic relationship. David is constantly turning to God, seeking guidance, and finding peace. This kind of trust is about knowing that even when the ground beneath you feels shaky, you have a divine anchor that keeps you steady. It's a theme that resonates with anyone who's ever faced uncertainty and sought something solid to hold on to. Now, let's talk about the initial invocation. David kicks off the psalm with a plea for God's protection. It's like he's dialing up God and saying, hey, I need you right now. This sets the stage for the entire psalm, showing right from the start that David's confidence is in God alone. There's something very powerful in acknowledging our vulnerability and asking for divine help. It's a moment of humility, recognizing that we can't do it all on our own. This invocation is also a declaration of faith. By asking for God's protection, David is affirming his belief in God's ability to safeguard him. It's like saying, I know you've got this. This plea is personal and direct, highlighting an intimate relationship with God. It's not a distant, formal request but a heartfelt conversation, the kind you have with someone you trust deeply. This sets an example for believers to cultivate their own direct and personal relationship with God. Then comes the declaration of loyalty. David makes it clear that the Lord is his only source of good. This is a bold statement of exclusive devotion, rejecting any other gods or sources of security. In a world where people often hedge their bets, keeping multiple options open, David's single-minded loyalty is striking. He's saying, I'm all in with God, no backups needed. This declaration is deeply personal. By stating that all good comes from the Lord, David is acknowledging God's sovereignty in his life. It's a recognition that every blessing, every moment of joy, is a direct result of God's grace. This fosters a sense of gratitude and reinforces the idea that true fulfillment comes from God alone. It's a powerful reminder that when we place our trust and loyalty in God, we tap into a source of goodness and blessing that far surpasses anything else. David also highlights the importance of the community of believers, referring to them as the saints in the land. This is a nod to the value of fellowship and communal worship. Faith isn't meant to be a solo journey, it's enriched and strengthened by the community. Think of it like a tapestry, where each thread adds to the overall beauty and strength. Valuing the community of believers reflects an understanding of our interconnectedness. Our spiritual well-being is intertwined with that of the broader community. This perspective encourages mutual support and solidarity. It's a reminder that we're not alone in our faith journey, we have a network of fellow believers to uplift and encourage us. This communal aspect of faith is vital, fostering relationships that sustain and enrich our spiritual lives. The psalmist's rejection of idolatry is clear and unequivocal. David condemns the worship of other gods, highlighting the suffering that comes with such practices. This isn't just about ancient idol worship, it's a metaphor for any misplaced trust or allegiance. David is advocating for exclusive devotion to God, recognizing the dangers and futility of idolatry. Idolatry, in this context, can be anything that takes priority over our relationship with God. It's about keeping our focus and trust solely on God, avoiding the distractions and deceptions of false beliefs. David's stance against idolatry underscores the holiness and exclusivity of God. It's a call to maintain a pure and undivided faith, free from the entanglements of modern-day idols, whether they be material possessions, status, or anything else. David likens God to his inheritance and portion, a metaphor rich in meaning. In ancient times, inheritance was a big deal, often representing one's security in future. By viewing God as his inheritance, David is saying that God is his ultimate source of wealth and satisfaction. It's like saying, I've got the best treasure anyone could ask for, and that's God. This metaphor speaks to the idea of spiritual richness. David finds his ultimate fulfillment and satisfaction in God, not in material wealth or earthly possessions. It's a powerful statement about the sufficiency of God. When we see God as our portion, we recognize that He is enough, that in Him, we have everything we need. This perspective shifts our focus from the temporary to the eternal, encouraging us to find our true wealth in our relationship with God. David expresses gratitude for God's counsel, highlighting a relationship marked by divine wisdom and guidance. This is a beautiful aspect of the psalm, showing that David doesn't just rely on God for protection but also for direction. It's like having a wise mentor who guides you through life's complexities. This gratitude for divine counsel underscores the importance of seeking and valuing God's wisdom. It's an acknowledgement that we don't have all the answers and that God's guidance is invaluable. This relationship of guidance and wisdom is intimate, portraying God as a close advisor who's deeply involved in our lives. It encourages believers to seek God's counsel in their own lives, trusting in His wisdom and direction. David's confidence in God's protection is unwavering, even in the face of challenges and dangers. This sense of security and stability is a recurring theme in the psalm. It's like saying, no matter what comes my way, I know I'm safe because God is with me. This confidence is deeply rooted in faith, portraying a trust that transcends circumstances. This theme of security and stability speaks to our human need for assurance and peace. Life is unpredictable, and we all face moments of fear and uncertainty. David's confidence in God's protection offers a powerful reminder that true security comes from our relationship with God. It's a call to anchor our lives in the divine, finding stability and peace in God's steadfast presence. David expresses a profound sense of joy and contentment in God's presence. This isn't just a fleeting happiness but a deep, abiding joy that comes from being in relationship with God. It's like finding that place where you're truly at peace, where everything feels right. This joy and fullness are about living a life that's rich with purpose and meaning. David's relationship with God fills him with a sense of contentment and peace that transcends circumstances. This is a joy that's rooted in the divine, a joy that comes from knowing and experiencing God's love and grace. It's an invitation for believers to seek this same joy and fullness in their own lives, finding true contentment in God's presence. One of the most profound aspects of Psalm 16 is its reference to the hope of resurrection. Christians interpret this as a messianic prophecy, pointing to the resurrection of Jesus Christ. David's words transcend his own time, offering a hope that extends into eternity. It's like a beacon of light, shining through the ages, offering hope and assurance of life beyond death. This hope in the resurrection is a cornerstone of Christian faith. It's the promise of eternal life, the assurance that death is not the end but a transition to a new beginning. David's words resonate with this hope, offering a powerful reminder of God's promise of resurrection and eternal life. It's a hope that brings comfort and assurance, encouraging believers to live with an eternal perspective. Finally, David declares that God reveals the path of life, a statement rich with meaning and promise. This isn't just about guidance for this life but an invitation to a life that's full and abundant. It's like being shown the way to a treasure trove of joy and delight, a path that leads to true fulfillment. This declaration speaks to the idea that God's guidance leads to a life that's rich. And as we reflect on Psalm 16, isn't it amazing how every line resonates with a promise and a sense of security? David's words remind us that no matter what we face, our refuge is divine, and our inheritance is secure. But let me ask you this: how often do we truly take a moment to acknowledge the Lord's presence in our lives? Think about it. Are we really trusting Him to be our portion and our cup? Or are we seeking fulfillment in temporary things? And what about our choices? Are we delighting in the godly people around us, like David did, or are we getting distracted by the world's offers? Imagine, for a moment, the peace that comes from knowing that our boundary lines have fallen in pleasant places, just as David describes. Have you ever felt that sense of divine contentment? What steps can you take today to center your life around this divine refuge? Maybe it's reaching out to a friend for a prayer, or spending a few extra minutes in silence, just listening for God's guidance. And let's not forget the joy that fills our hearts when we remember that eternal pleasures are at His right hand. Can you picture that? A joy that never fades, a pleasure that's everlasting. As you go about your day, keep these reflections close. How can you let this psalm shape your actions, your thoughts, and your prayers? Don't just hear the words, live them. Because when you do, you're not just reading a psalm, you're stepping into a promise, a divine refuge that's always there for you. So, what's your next step in embracing this divine promise? Drop a comment below, share your thoughts, your prayers, your reflections. Let's journey together, finding strength and refuge in His Word. Stay inspired, stay blessed, and remember, in Him, you'll always find your divine refuge.